Good evening, everyone. I'm Driti Atri, and once again, you're watching Skyline. Today, I have another question for you. What if I told you that one decision taken inside the US Senate, one new rule announced in Washington, one tax notification that released in New Delhi, and one immigration order it was issued in Ottawa, it could completely change the future of millions of Indians around the globe? Sounds unbelievable, right? But that's exactly what is happening today. Ladies and gentlemen, these are not just headlines. These are decisions that can change careers. These are decisions that can change finances and even dreams. So stay with me till the very end because every story tonight it is connected to the next one. So let's start with it. First of all, America's biggest work visa. It could be heading towards its biggest shakeup in decades. If working in the US is your dream or somebody your family is preparing for an H-1B lottery, then today's first story deserves your complete attention. A new bill introduced in the US Senate has sparked fresh debate about the future of skilled immigration. And if it ever becomes a law, it can impact far beyond America's border. The proposal has been introduced by Republican Senator Tim Sheehy. It is called the End H-1B Abuse Act. Now, before we go any further, let me make one thing absolutely clear that this is still a proposed bill. It has not become a law. It still has to move through the legislative process before anything changes. But the reason the world is paying close attention is because the ideas mentioned in this proposal are among the toughest restrictions ever suggested for H-1B program. So let's understand why this bill has become such a big talking point here. The first proposal, it is simple, but its impact could be a lot. The bill seeks to stop the insurance of new H-1B visas for 3 years. Think about what that really means. For 36 months, thousands of engineers, software developers, AI experts, and skilled professionals waiting outside the US may not even get an opportunity to enter through regular H-1B route. For many people here, that means putting their career on hold. For companies, it could mean rethinking where their next talent is going to be from. But that's only one part of the proposal. The whole bill also wants employer to pay a mandatory fee for $100,000 for every new H-1B petition. Now, let's pause here for a moment. $100,000, it is more than 8 lakh rupees. Now, ask yourself one simple question. How many companies would willingly spend that much amount before they even know whether the visa will be approved or not? Now, here, large multinational companies may still have the resources, but startups and small businesses, well, they could simply stop hiring foreign workers. And that is why this is specifically important for India. Why? Because Indians receive the largest share of H-1B visas every single year. From software engineers and cloud architects to cybersecurity experts and AI researchers. Indians, they form a major part of America's tech workforce. Any major change to H-1B system, it naturally affects Indian families more than anyone else. And that's why this bill, it is being watched so closely in both Washington and New Delhi. Well, the proposal, it goes even further here. It wants to reduce the annual H-1B cap from 65,000 visas to just 25,000. And at the very same time, it proposes the end of the current lottery system and replace it with a wage-based selection process. Let me simplify it for you. Candidates with higher salaries would move to the front of the line. For experienced professionals earning high salaries, this may improve their chances. But what about freshers? What about young engineers? They are just beginning their careers. Getting selected, well, it could become even more difficult for them. And there's another proposal that has worried international students. The bill also targets OPT, Optional Practical Training. It is the program that allows international students to work in the United States after completing their studies. So every year, thousands of Indian students, they depend on OPT to gain work experience before moving to the H-1B route. If this proposal ever becomes a law, that pathway it could become much narrower than it is today. Well, the bill, it also seeks to change another important feature of H-1B program, dual intent. Under the current system, H-1B holders can legally work in the US while applying for permanent residency through green card, right? Now, the proposed legislation, it wants to remove that pathway. If that happens, then many skilled workers could find it much harder to settle permanently in the US even after spending years working over there. Now, here's the bigger picture. Even before this bill was introduced, many companies had already started expanding their engineering operations outside the US. Well, it'll be very shocking and surprising, but India has emerged one of the biggest beneficiaries of this trend, with global capacity centers growing rapidly in the center like Bengaluru, Hyderabad, Pune, or Chennai. If hiring foreign workers in America becomes more expensive or more difficult, companies may decide to build larger tech teams in India instead of relocating employees overseas. So, today's story is not just about one visa, it's about the future of global hiring. It is about where the next generation of tech jobs will be created. It is about how one proposal inside the US Senate it could influence career decisions across continents. Whether this bill ultimately becomes law or not, one message is becoming increasingly clear here. America's immigration debate, it is definitely entering a new chapter, and the world, it is watching very carefully. Now let's hop on to India's biggest warning for NRIs with foreign assets today. The Indian government has sent a clear message to the NRIs around the globe. The days of forgotten foreign bank accounts and undeclared overseas investment may soon be over. Whether you work in the US, whether you work in Canada, the UK, or West Asia, this next update it could directly affect your finances. A new disclosure scheme has been introduced, and for many taxpayers, this could be the last opportunity to correct old reporting mistakes before stricter scrutiny even begins. The Central Board of Direct Taxes, or also we call it CBDT, it has launched a new disclosure window called Fast DS. At first, many people they may think that this only concerns the ultra-rich, but that assumption it would be a mistake for you. This scheme could affect ordinary professionals, returning NRIs, and people who still maintain overseas financial accounts. A bank account opened years ago, maybe shares received from a foreign company, or certain overseas investment may all become important depending on your tax status. And the reason behind this move it is simple. The world is changing. Financial information now moves across border faster than ever before. Through international information sharing agreement, tax authorities in different nations are increasingly able to receive financial data automatically. That means governments are no longer depending only on taxpayers to volunteer disclosure overseas assets. Tech is becoming global financial report, and that too for more transparency. Recognizing the reality, the government has opened 6-month compliance window. For eligible taxpayers, the scheme provides an opportunity to regularize past reporting issues under specified conditions before stricter enforcement begins. But there is another important point that many returning NRIs they often overlook. Solving a tax issue does not automatically solve every legal issue for you. Tax laws and foreign exchange regulations work very differently, and understanding that difference that is extremely important before filing any declaration. So, what should people do now? Wait. The first step is simple. Prepare a complete list of every overseas financial account connected to your name. That includes bank account, brokerage account, in fact, investment savings, company share, and other foreign financial assets. Now, second step is to understand your residential status under Indian tax law, because disclosure requirement can change depending on your status. And finally, if there is any uncertainty, consult a qualified cross-border tax expert before making any assumptions here. One forgotten account, it may not look very important to you today. One missing declaration may appear like a small oversight, but in an era where financial information travels automatically between nations, small mistake can become much bigger problem later on. And that is why government's message it is becoming increasingly clear. Global financial transparency is no longer the future. It is already here. Now let's talk about America's new student visa rule that could change the future for thousands of Indians. Every year, thousands of Indian families take loan, sell investments, spend their life saving to send their children to the US. They believe that once their son or maybe a daughter, that person receives an admission letter and an F1 visa, the hardest part of the journey, that's over. But the US has now introduced new rules that could change the whole journey. The US has announced important changes affecting international students holding F1 visa. For Indian students who form one of the largest international student community in America, these changes are being watched very, very carefully. The reason is simple here. Studying in the US is not just about earning a degree, is it? It is also about gaining work experience, building a career, and for many, eventually finding long-term opportunity in the country. So any change to student visa rule, it naturally creates concern for both students and their families. And yes, one of the biggest message from the new policy is that students must strictly follow every single visa condition throughout their stay. American authorities have made it clear that visa compliance, it is no longer something students can take lightly. Universities, immigration officials, and students, they are now expected to pay much closer attention to attendance, enrollment status, and other visa requirements. Even small mistakes that were once ignored, it can now create larger immigration problem. Let's just understand why this matters so much. Every year, Indian families invest lakhs of rupees in tuition fee, accommodation, insurance, and daily living expenses. Many students also depend on education loan that they plan to repay after finding a job in the US. So if immigration rules become stricter, students will have to be far more careful throughout their academic journey. Well, success will no longer depend only on getting admission into a good university. It will also depend on following every immigration rule correctly from the very first day until graduation. Experts are now advising students not to panic but to stay informed. Keep all your immigration documents updated. Inform the university immediately if there is any challenge or change in academic status. Never ignore communication from your designated school official, commonly known as DSO. And most importantly, don't rely on social media rumors for immigration advice. One viral post, it can create uncertainty, but official guidance, it should always be your first source of information. Here the bigger picture is becoming increasingly clear. The US is tightening immigration enforcement across multiple categories. Earlier, the debate focused mainly on H-1B. Now, international students are also finding themselves under greater scrutiny. Well, for thousands of Indian families planning higher education abroad, in fact, staying informed, it has become one of the biggest tasks that one can have. And yes, while America is starting its immigration system, Canada is also making major changes. And this time, the focus is on one of the most important pathways to permanent residency. For years, Canada was seen as one of the easiest destinations for skilled immigrants. Many Indians believe that studying or working in Canada would eventually lead to PR. But over the past few years, that belief, it has been tested again and again. And now another important immigration policy has changed. Ladies and gentlemen, the Canadian government has introduced changes to its humanitarian and compassionate or H&C immigration program. The program allows certain individuals facing exceptional circumstances to request permanent residency even after they do not qualify through the regular immigration pathway. However, under the revised approach, the government says applicants, they will now be assessed under stricter guidelines and with greater focus on exceptional cases. Now, many people may ask that, does this affect every Indian living in Canada? So no, the answer is no, but it does send a bigger message here. Canada's immigration system is becoming more selective across several categories. Over the past few months, we have already seen reduction in international student permit, changes in work permit, and adjustment to permanent residency target. Now, this latest move adds another chapter to that larger immigration reset. Here, immigration experts say that applicants should never assume that special programs can replace regular immigration pathway. Every case under H&C program, it is assessed individually, and approval depends on very specific circumstances. Simply facing difficulty in finding a job or extending a permit, it may not be enough for you, and that is why legal advice and proper documentation have become more important than ever before. For thousands of Indians already living in Canada, the message is straightforward. Well, keep your immigration status valid, follow every single rule carefully, plan your next step well in advance instead of waiting until the last moment. Because Canada's immigration policies are changing much faster than they did a few years ago. And every new announcement, it is making long-term planning even more important. But yes, this is where the story becomes even more interesting. While Canada is introducing stricter immigration policy, another revelation is raising fresh questions. Official figures are now revealing something that many people did not really expected. The number behind Canada's permanent residency plan, it tells us a very different story. This nation, Canada, it has always presented itself as a country that welcomes immigrants. Every year, thousands of Indians apply for PR, believing that if they work really hard, follow all the rules, and maintain patience, their Canadian dream will eventually come true. But fresh government data is now raising an important question. Is Canada's immigration plan really as straightforward as many people really believe? Recently released official figures have revealed details about Canada's future permanent residency plan. And many immigration experts, they are now studying these numbers very carefully. On paper, Canada continues to support immigration. But when you look deeper into the data, the picture becomes even more complicated. The Canadian government is planning to reduce overall permanent resident admissions as compared to the previous target, as it tries to balance immigration with housing shortage, healthcare pressure, and rising public concern over infrastructure. And you know why this matters for Indians so much? Because India remains one of the largest source of countries for immigrants that are moving to Canada. Every year, lakhs of Indian students, professionals, families choose Canada hoping for better career opportunity and eventually permanent residency. Now, if overall immigration numbers become smaller, competition naturally gets tougher. Well, even highly qualified applicants may have to wait longer or score higher under Canada's immigration system. In the meantime, immigration consultants, they say that this is exactly why applicants should not rely on old assumptions. The immigration system that existed 3 or maybe 4 years ago, it is changing rapidly. Rules are evolving, selection criteria are becoming stricter, processing that is shifting, and simply following advice that worked for somebody a few years ago maybe, it may no longer be enough for you today. Applicants need updated information, realistic expectations, and careful planning before making major life decisions. Ladies and gentlemen, the message coming from Canada, that is extremely clear now. The country is not shutting its doors completely, no. It is becoming far more selective about who enters and who eventually becomes a permanent resident. Well, for thousands of Indians planning their future, understanding these changing realities, it has become just as important as achieving a high language score or gaining work experience. And yes, speaking of Indians abroad, let's talk about Indian Americans, and here is a new warning for them. For decades, Indian Americans have been recognized as one of the most successful immigrant community in the US. They have built global companies, they have led tech firms, they have worked as doctors, engineers, professors, and entrepreneurs. They have contributed significantly to the American economy as well. But today, many members of the community are finding themselves caught in a larger political debate over immigration. As immigration continues to dominate the political discussion in the US, community leaders, they are urging Indian Americans to remain alert and informed. Their message is not about creating fear, it's about being prepared. During periods of intense political debate, misinformation often spreads quickly, and immigrants can sometimes become target of unfair stereotypes or hostile rhetoric. And that is why experts are advising people not to react emotionally, but to stay informed through official information and trusted community organization. Well, the warning is specifically important because the Indian community has grown rapidly over the past 2 decades. Today, millions of people of Indian origin live across the US. They are students, they are skilled professionals, they are business owners, and second generation Americans who actually contributed to almost every sector of the economy. Yet, when immigration becomes a political issue, even legal immigration often find themselves facing uncertainty or confusion. In the meantime, community organizations are encouraging people to know their legal rights, keep immigration documents updated, avoid spreading unverified information on social media, and report any incident of discrimination through proper legal channel. The advice is simple: stay calm, stay informed, stay united. Panic never solves any problem, but awareness often does. This story is also a reminder of something bit bigger here. Immigration is not just about visas and paperwork, it is also about people, families, and communities trying to build a better life. Behind every policy decision or debate, there are millions of ordinary people who simply want to work hard, raise their family, and contribute to the country that they now call home. Every immigration story is not about visas, jobs, or PR. Sometimes it is about a family whose life changes forever with just one phone call. Our next story is one such heartbreaking reminder that behind every success story abroad, there is also a moment of unimaginable tragedy. A young software engineer from Telangana, that is in South India, has tragically lost his life in Michigan, leaving his entire family in deep shock and grief. Like thousands of Indians, he had traveled to the United States with dreams of building a successful career, supporting his loved ones, and creating a better life abroad. But instead, his journey ended in a tragedy that no family ever expects. The news has once again reminded people of the emotional reality behind the lives of Indians who are working overseas. We often hear stories about high paying jobs, successful careers, professional achievements, but very rarely we do talk about loneliness, the pressure of living far from your home, or the pain family experience when something goes terribly wrong thousands of kilometers away. For parents in India, every overseas opportunity comes with two emotions. One is pride, the other is constant worry. Every phone call from abroad, it brings relief. Every unexpected call brings fear. And when tragedy strikes, families not only have to deal with emotional loss, but also with legal formalities, insurance procedure, and difficult process of bringing their loved ones back home. The Indian community in the US has often come together during difficult times, helping families with documentation, fundraising, and coordination with local authorities. And these acts of kindness remind us that while people may live far from India, the spirit of community, it continues to remain strong across the globe. As investigation continues, one thing is certain: behind every headline is a family whose life has changed forever. Well, this young Indian has lost his life in a tragic car accident, and it was also revealed that before the accident, he was not in a good mental space. And this is bringing the saddest news to his family. Now, let's move from this tragic story to the rules and regulations that Indians need to follow. For many Indians living in the US, filing an annual tax return, it is a routine process. But there is one financial rule that many people either overlook or simply they don't know enough about. And ignoring it, it could lead to serious consequences. The Internal Revenue Service, or the IRS, requires many US taxpayers to report certain foreign financial accounts if they cross the prescribed reporting limit. This includes overseas bank accounts and other financial holdings. For thousands of Indians living in America who still maintain bank accounts or invest in India, understanding these rules, it has become extremely important. Now, this does not mean that every Indian living in the United States has done something wrong. Not at all. The issue is awareness. Many people opened bank accounts in India years before moving abroad. Some still have fixed deposit. Others receive rental income, family transfer, or maintain joint account with parents. Over time, they may forget that certain accounts could have reporting requirement under the US law. Experts say that taxpayers should never assume that because money has already been taxed in one country, there is nothing else to report. Tax reporting and tax payment are often two different things. In many cases, the requirement is simply to disclose the existing foreign financial account, even if no additional tax is payable. Understanding that distinction, it's very, very important for you. The safest approach is to maintain proper financial record, understanding both Indian and the US reporting requirement, and seek professional advice whenever there is a confusion for you. Well, cross-border taxation is one of the most complicated areas of financial planning, and relying on guesswork, it can become more expensive later on. As financial systems around the globe become increasingly connected, governments are receiving more information than ever before. That means transparency is no longer just a recommendation. It is becoming an exception. For Indians living abroad, staying informed, it is one of the best ways to avoid unnecessary legal and financial problems. Every month, millions of Indian families send money abroad. Some send funds to children who are studying in the US, others support relatives that are living overseas. Well, many transfer money for investment, medical treatment, or buying a property. It has become a normal part of life, but now the government has made changes that every Indian sending money abroad should now understand. India has updated important rules related to overseas remittances under the liberalized remittance scheme, better known as the LRS, along with the tax collected at source or TCS framework, the whole we are talking about. While these changes may sound technical to you, their impact, it could be very practical for ordinary families. Anyone planning to transfer money outside India should understand how these rules apply before making large transactions. So let's understand why this matters. First of all, every year thousands of parents transfer money to universities, specifically to the US, to pay tuition fee. Families, they send funds for living expenses, medical emergencies, and investment. Business owners also make overseas payment for different purposes. For all these people, knowing the latest rule has become extremely important because the amount of TCS and the applicable exemptions may vary depending on the purpose of remittance here. One of the biggest mistakes people make is assuming that every overseas transfer, it is treated the same way. Now, that is not true. Different categories of remittances may have different rules, limits, and tax treatment. In some cases, the tax collected can later be adjusted while filing your income tax return. But understanding the process in advance, it can help avoid confusion and improve financial planning. Well, financial experts therefore say that smartest approach is simple here. Before transferring large amount overseas, check the latest government guidelines. Speak with your bank if it is required and understand exactly how much TCS may apply here. A few minutes of planning today, it can save unnecessary stress later on. The larger message behind this story, it is clear. As India becomes more connected to the global economy, cross-border financial rules are also becoming detailed. Whether you are sending money to your child studying abroad, investing overseas, or supporting family members in the US or maybe other countries, staying informed has become just as important as earning the money itself. And with that, here we come to the end of tonight's Skyline. And you know what? Staying informed, it is no longer a choice for you. It is necessity. One policy can change your career. One government notification can affect your finances. One immigration decision can reshape your entire future. One government notification can affect your finances. One immigration decision can reshape your future. And that is exactly why we bring these stories to you. Not just to tell you what happened, but to help you understand why it matters. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Driti Atri and this was Skyline. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you again in another important edition. Till then, stay informed, stay aware, and take care.